This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome everybody to the Writer's Parachute, where we are guiding author and writer dreams to a perfect landing. Today we have with you a very special guest. We have Adrian Starks. He's going to be talking with us about his podcast, Your Purposeful Life, and about a bunch of other things that he's got going on right now. But of course, first we're going to talk about our topic of the week. And I want to remind you guys that we did add the Buy Me a Coffee to the Writer's Parachute podcast here. So if you would like to be part of the team and support us, then you can go buy me a coffee. There's a link in the show notes for you to do that. So go check that out. So we're going to talk today, the topic of the week, we're going to talk about descriptions. This is one of the things that I get a lot of questions about and a lot of confusion about. So let's talk a little bit about descriptions. I say that you need to have 3 different descriptions, especially when you're talking about a book. First of all, you have to have your description or back cover copy that describes the book or the story within. Now, this one is part of your marketing journey to sell the book. So it should be reflective of what you want your audience to know to create curiosity, intrigue, and want to read, to purchase and read your book. If you're putting anything else on that back cover copy that doesn't lead them on that book buying journey, then you've missed your audience. You've missed that opportunity. That is its purpose. That is the reason for it to be there. Again, with ebooks, this goes to your description that is on your purchasing page. It needs to be part of the book buying marketing journey to get your audience to purchase your book. So if that means comparing it to other books or mentioning things within that are unusual or different or something to get them to want to open the book and read it. The second one is the one that you would have in, let's say, a media kit that talks not only about you, but about how you and your book work together to talk about the topics and the subjects within. And then the third one is going to be about speaking. This is going to be a combination of all 3. It's going to be talking about you, about your books, and about the subtext within your book, the things that you would be speaking about. In my particular books, I write children's middle grade, more of a fantasy style book that are chapter books. But within the subtext of the book, we talk about empathy, we talk about friendship, we talk about bullying, we talk about homelessness. So in this third description, this is where I would bring those things forward. The problem I see a lot of times is people are either trying to tell a story on a nonfiction book, which may work as long as you're giving them some hint at the benefits or what they're going to learn in reading that book. And vice versa, the same thing. If you're writing a fiction book or a memoir, you need to tell them the story. You need to figure out what is going to draw them in. A lot of times my suggestion when you're working on that back cover copy is to think movie trailer. What do you see when you see a movie trailer? You see the highlights. You see the interesting little clips that draw you in and make you want to go to the movie theater and watch that movie. Now at the end, those clips may not have a whole lot to do with the storyline, but they hooked you in. They got you to go to the movie theater. Same thing for your back cover copy of your book. It is to hook your reader, to get them to read your book and go on that adventure or that journey with you. I hope that helps you, and I hope that gives you some idea of the different ways you can look at your description on your book. Not only that, but the description that would go in your media kit. And of course, this third description where you're going to be speaking and talking about yourself and your book and your experiences. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on and get on with our interview. Today, we have a very special guest. This is a very special episode for you guys. I'm bringing back one of my favorite podcasters. It's Adrian Starks. He is the host of Your Purposeful Life podcast. He's a professional speaker, narrator, writer, and entrepreneur. Welcome to the Writer's Parachute. How are you today, Adrian?
Donna, I am absolutely wonderful. And let me tell you, it is good to be back on your podcast. Thank you for having me.
Well, I love having you here. You're kind of one of my big inspirations for doing podcasting. Like I said, I follow you and try to emulate a lot of things that you do now. I kind of go my own way, but that's just who I am. But you've got some exciting news. Last time we talked about a little bit about your podcast, but we more talked about, the book that you have coming out that you're still working on. But today we have a big announcement for this audience about your, shall I call it, new podcast?
We can call it new podcast. We can call it the Renaissance podcast, the rebirth of it. And it's going to be launching in the first week of November. And it's basically the rebranding of my previous podcast. This one is called Your Purposeful Life. And with that, we changed the concept of the show, the logo, the energy, the guests that are coming on, the conversations. And the topic is around the conversation about purpose and what it means to different people. Because I truly believe, Donna, that purpose is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's different for everyone. And throughout our lives, our purposes will change. The big question is, what are we being purposeful towards at this point in time? So the show is going to be based on that and what guests are doing with their purpose in their communities, their environments, and more importantly, the planet.
Right. Which is amazing to me. I mean, I always wish I could do more. And you started this podcast so many years ago. I mean, I've been watching it. It seems like forever before even podcasts were kind of popular. So you're doing this rebranding and relaunching, and I kind of want to know why. I mean, it seemed like you're doing pretty good. So why all this change?
That's a great question. And the podcast started back in 2019. And it was called the Purposeful Life Show. And I want to let all listeners know today that the episodes are all still relevant. If you go in, you can still listen to episodes that are going to match your frequency or what you're looking for in your life. But I thought long and hard within the last couple of years about the podcast, like how can I improve it? And I think this is part of my concept of change. When we are so comfortable doing things, it's okay to say, maybe I'm going to step outside this box now and try something different. And the podcast was truly successful, but I also realized through the podcast that I had kind of lost my inspiration for it. And I was wondering what was going on. Why was I not excited about interviewing, more guests? And I realized that the energy shifted. The podcast within the last year or so was about entrepreneurs and business owners only. And although I come from that environment, I realized that it really wasn't where I wanted to go energetically in this new state of mind that I have now about people in general. And so I thought about, where do I want to go? How do I want to change it? What will happen if I do change it? And so the first thing was, what are people seeing and listening to when they go to the podcast? And what message am I giving them? Is it a message about business, or is it a message about being purposeful about your life? And so I went dormant for a while. And I think you know about this, that I didn't post anything for about 3 or 4 months because I was thinking about the next time I post something, I wanted to match a new energy and frequency. And so I decided that I needed to rebrand, first of all, give it a fresh look. I needed to change the title of it to make sure that the title resonated with the audience. So now that's why it's called Your Purposeful Life, because it's about the audience. It's about when you're coming to the show or coming to the podcast, what is your purpose? And can my guest or any guest on the show help you with that, help you to shape it your way? And it's not about them having the only answer. It's about having something that sparks that purpose that's already in you, or it helps you to rekindle a purpose that you may have forgot about or you put to the side because you thought it wasn't important. Right. And this podcast is about all walks of life now. People talk about niches, and I really believe that niches are important. But I wanted this podcast to be its own niche that would attract multiple layers of people that would come in, and it's like a buffet table. They would come in and say, "Ooh, I want this. I want this. I want to combine these two. I want to eat only this today." And that's what the podcast is about. But it has one common theme: being purposeful about creating things in your environment, in your businesses, in your communities, and the planet.
Right. Well, and it's so amazing. And you yourself are very inspiring, at least to me. And I talked to a lot of your audience members, and I quite frankly, they all agree with me. And so you sort of touched a little bit here on the topics and the point of the podcast, but what specific topics are you going to be including in this new branding of Your Purposeful Life?
Great question. So some of the new topics will be revolved around, I'm very big on the planet.
Mhm.
So I love talking about planetarian issues. I call myself a humanitarian and also planetarian. So there's one topic where I have a special person on. She talks about worms and how they benefit the planet. There's topics about the environment, about weather patterns, about all these changes. And then there's some topics that are going around, stemming around people who have been through certain things. I have a gentleman that's coming on. He was arrested in Beijing for 10 days. And my question for him was, what was that like? What purpose did you steal out of that? And that purpose that came out of that was, get this, Donna, writing. He decided he wanted to write books, which I should connect you to. He wanted to write books and to help the youth see how important writing is. That came out of him being in Beijing and being arrested for 10 days.
Well, yeah, you never know where that inspiration is going to come from. And that's exciting. That's exciting part of what we do.
Yeah. And I have someone else, she's from Romania, and she talks about growing up in the communist movement and how that shifted and shaped her purposes about being different and being open to other cultures and learning and expressing herself in poetry and writing and also helping communities. So this podcast still has remnants of business and entrepreneurship, but it's kind of clothed in people's purposes. Mm-hmm. It's not about coming on and saying, well, I have this kind of business and I help this kind of client. No pun intended to anyone out there, but I'm not bringing people on the podcast for that reason. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're successful at something, but I want to know the human mess behind it, because at the end of the day, we're all human. No matter what our successes are, we all have some things that we are dealing with. And by showing the humanity behind what people do and also show why they're so good at it, I think the podcast is going to really help a lot of people reshape their purpose.
Oh, I think that's amazing because, I think about the last, 5 or 6 years. It's like we've had leaps and bounds just in my personal life about how I look at the things I use, the things I throw away, the things that are just kind of extraneous and weighing me down in my life. And you don't really think about that until somebody puts that mirror in front of your face going, why is the United States one of the few countries where we actually rent space to store our stuff?
So true. It is true.
We're so abundantly blessed that we have to have extra space to store all of our wealth and things that we acquire, which I just find fascinating. And until somebody pointed that out to me, it never occurred to me that that's what we do.
Exactly.
I didn't think about, all of the food that we throw away, or all of the non-reusable items that we use every single day. It's like, I feel like, I don't want to get on my soapbox about that, but sometimes I feel like, we're living in a disposable world.
We are, and to be conscious of that is so important, Donna, because there's so much to be grateful for. For instance, I'll tell you a little thing that I do. So I'm a coffee lover. And one of the things I realized that I grind my own beans. So I buy my own whole beans, and I will grind them at home. And sometimes there's some residue left from the grinded beans. As opposed to throwing that left residue in the trash, like some people do, just dump it. I will take that residue that's left over from the grinded beans, not from the pot, but from the actual machine, and I will scrape it out and I'll put it into a little canteen. And over time, it keeps building up. Every time I grind beans, there's leftover residue. And what I have more coffee long term. So instead of throwing the coffee away, I keep it and I can use it again for another time, which can save me from having to use more coffee beans, et cetera. So it's just certain things you can do that can help you to really not be so wasteful. Eggshells, taking eggshells and crushing them up and using them for other things, for your plants and other types of things around your house is so important. And that's why the purpose of being on this planet is not to take, it is to be a co-collaborator of creation. It is to find a way that we can coexist rightfully with the planet, because the planet is changing regardless. The idea is, how do we want to live on this planet and how do we live amongst each other?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I know it spurred some changes in me about what I hang on to. Because this is a personal story for me, but my grandkids earlier this summer were really surprised because I opened up all my jewelry boxes and all my keepsake boxes, and I'm like, take whatever you want, and they're just kind of looking at me and they're like, is this a test? And I'm like, no, no.
Am I being recorded here?
They're and then my daughters are calling me and they're like, why are you getting rid of all this stuff? And I'm like, because it's sitting here in boxes.
Mhm.
It's sitting here in boxes that I'm storing. I got it in the same boxes that it was stored for years and years and years. It's like, I have all of this stuff. It's like, why not let somebody enjoy it? I mean, there was so much jewelry, there was so much keepsakes, there was so much needlework and stuff, passed down through the generations. It's like, why am I keeping it in boxes that nobody ever sees?
And that is why it's important to we call it decluttering,
Mhm.
getting rid of things that we're no longer using, because that helps us with not being attached. There was a book, speaking of books,
Mhm.
I read by Eckhart Tolle, and it's called The New Earth.
Mhm.
In this book, he talks about the ego,
Mhm.
being attached to things. The first thing we learn when we're young is mine, or this belongs to me. And we develop this attachment, which later on down the road does not serve our evolution as human beings, because we put value with things we're attached to. And therefore, we have accumulated a lot of stuff, a lot of things that have no place in our lives. And we're talking things, we're talking people to get there. And so we have to learn that by detaching, like you were saying, it really helps to free up the mind, because when you have things stacked in one space, believe it or not, your mind remembers that. And you could consider that to be part of your file cabinet in your brain stacked up. And you wonder why you can't think straight, why you're, as you know about this, Donna, writer creativity, it may stunt for a bit. It may even stop because there's something else clogging that free space up for you to flow and express yourself. That channel of creativity was what we talk about.
Right. Well, and I have learned that I love it now because now they all have all of these items on display, so I get to see them in it, and it helps relaunch those memories of the people that I inherited them from, rather than just being stored in a box where I don't think about them ever. So I get more enjoyment out of them enjoying it, and plus, it was really telling by what each of them wanted or what each of them valued. I thought that was very interesting. So, but let's get back to you. So, I want to know, what do you think the key takeaways for your listeners should be with this new podcast?
The key takeaways is just to have an open mind and to be open to listen to new ideas when it comes to rebirthing something or some type of solution for yourself. There's no one on this planet that has the solution to everything. So with each guest, it's going to be depending on how they resonate with you. If you really connect to a guest, I suggest getting out a pen and pad and really thinking about the takeaways or what they're teaching in that conversation, because each conversation we're going to have some takeaways. What are they here for? What are we learning from what they're teaching around the world? And to write those things down and try to find ways to implement them, because nothing happens without action. We can write notes all day long, but if you don't start putting them into action and trying something out, there won't be any changes that are created. So what you can take from this podcast is an element of education, of teaching. The same time, you will be taking in fun conversations. You'll hear a little bit more about the guest that's on, their background, some of their quirks. You'll hear about me a little bit because I connect with everybody on a different level. And you're going to get just this, I call it the art of conversation under the umbrella of interviewing.
Right.
And you're going to hear this dialogue take place. You're going to feel like you're a friend at a table, that you're just like, you're listening to these two people talk, and you're like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to interrupt this flow that's going on, because this is pretty interesting. And that's what you can get from the podcast. It's not just a talking and about things and rambling.
Mhm.
It's about, why is this person here? What purpose do they have? And how does that purpose possibly align with some of your questions about your life, your career, your well-being, and even the planet itself? Because a lot of people have questions about that.
Wow. So it sounds to me like your big takeaway is for those of you who don't know what your purpose is, or you're trying to figure out what that purpose is, or what direction your purpose should take, go listen to Adrian's new podcast, Your Purposeful Life. And I guarantee you'll find a purpose, you'll find a direction, you'll find a path, and
Yeah.
you'll learn something.
Yeah, and I love that you said that. And I also wanted to reiterate too that if you're listening, I know there's some people, because I like to jump on both sides of the coin here, because I know that some people are going to be like, well, I know my purpose. I'm not lost. No. That's not what this podcast is about. It's not about being lost. It's not about not knowing your purpose. It's about being purposeful. Like, what is your intention behind doing things? If you want to make a better business for yourself, okay, well, your purpose may be not in alignment with what you truly want. And this show is going to help you see how people are in alignment with their purpose and what challenges they have gone through. And therefore, it may be very similar to your challenges. And that may be the clue that can help you reshape your purpose, reshape your actions to be more in alignment so that you can get the results that you want and even experience things better in life. I just had to add that.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and I interviewed a guest a few weeks ago that was talking about this same thing. It's like, you know, at the end of the year, we all do the same thing. We have all these New Year's resolutions. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And then we never make a plan. And what you're talking about is it's okay to have an idea, but you better have a plan behind it or there's no purpose.
You have to have a plan. You know, a plan will not work itself, is what I say. A plan will not plan things for you. We have to set the plan, and then we have to start working bit by bit at the plan. The thing is, you do certain things a certain way. It's not about how much you do. It's about the quality and the efficiency of what you do. And that's what the purpose of doing things is. When you're doing something, what is my purpose right now of doing it? Between you and I, the purpose of this conversation is for us to open up a dialogue about the purpose of the podcast, about you and I talking about the writing, about things that are going on around the world. That's the purpose. If we didn't have a purpose, we would come on here where we just free flow and you'd be like, huh? What are they saying? Why are they talking about drafts right now? What does that have to do with the purpose? You know, but if we know where we're going with the conversation, that's the purpose. And that's the whole idea, is for us to be consciously aware more of the purpose behind doing things. When you're at work, what is your purpose for having the meeting with that person that you need to talk to, because maybe they're not communicating with you appropriately, or they may be off on or performance? What is the purpose behind you having a conversation with a friend that you need to have that conversation with, but you've been putting it off for a very long time? When you approach anything, you have to ask yourself, what is my purpose right now? What am I doing this for? That helps everything out.
Well, and sometimes we create habits that don't have a purpose.
Exactly.
You know, which can kind of weigh us down, where, you know, you have a meeting with this person, you know, every 2 weeks, come rain or shine, but that doesn't serve you right now. It's just taking up time and energy that could be having some purpose behind it. So, I mean, you and I could sit here and talk about this
Yes,
all day long. So let me get on to some of the other things I want to talk to you about. So, okay, we talk about this a lot, and I say that success takes time, talent, and tenacity, which I believe you've always had. And I just, like I said, I'm a fangirl, so we'll just go with that. So I want to know what else you think you need to succeed with, or to achieve success.
You need to have flexibility. A lot of people don't have that now. Flexibility and an open mind. Success, like purpose, is not a one size fits all. And we live in a world now where everyone is telling people that I've got your clue to success. I got it here. I got the whole gold nugget right here for you. All you have to do is follow me and you will be successful. Oh, I've heard so many people say that. And I've actually when I was younger, I followed people like that. And I wasn't happy. I wasn't complete. I wasn't fulfilled. And I, for damn sure, didn't get any closer to where I wanted to go, because I was following someone else's goals and someone else's dreams that worked for them, not for me. So I would say that you have to have flexibility to understand that your journey is going to be different, and that you got to try some things, get your hands dirty a little bit, and roll around in the dirt, scrape your elbows and, get some of those, we call them the life wounds of experience on you, so that you can say that, okay, I tried that didn't work, but I learned so much from it. That to me is a success, because you tried something and you went through it and you realized that maybe it worked, or maybe it's something you can do better with it. So success is, for me, an activity, a succession of activity along the way to something that you really want to experience in life. And that activity comes in small steps, it comes in big steps. But either way, there's some activity going on. For when I first started my speaking career, I remember I was working a 9 to 5 and I worked in a call center. And it was on the 9th floor of the Metropolitan Building in Seattle. And I would always, my desk was facing I-5. And I would always tell myself, wow, I'm going to be on I-5 today, driving to go to speaking gigs, to go here. And I would always visualize that. And no matter what the environment gave me, when it came to people, I realized that that environment was not going to hold me very long. I'm going to grow beyond this environment. So I got better at my job. I started being happy about coming to work because I knew I was onto something better. So ironically enough, that was a success action that was a magnet for the opportunities that began to present themselves to me. And here's the funny thing. Now that I drive on I-5 to go to wherever it's south of Washington or north, I spent a lot of time in British Columbia, Vancouver, BC. I still see that building. And when I drive by, I quickly look, I'm like, wow, I was on a 9th floor at one point saying I was going to be on I-5. Now, did that happen overnight? No, it did not happen overnight. But what I did is every single day, I had the vision that I could be on I-5 doing that. And I put in the work. I started going to workshops and seminars on the weekends. When everybody else was having fun, I was in workshops learning how to be a better speaker, learning how to present things better. I was learning how to podcast. After work, people would say on a Friday, let's go to happy hour. I would be sitting in the lobby writing down the 10 reasons why I deserve my dream. And they couldn't figure out what I was doing. Why are you sitting here? We were done with work, but my personal work is starting now. And I would say, this is not happy hour. This is my productive hour. I'm going to write for an hour here at this table until my bus comes.
There you go.
And I will catch up with you all next week. And that was what I did. Those little things added up over time. And that was my success. Now, also, what I want us to realize too is that social media has a wonderful way of making us feel like we're not successful. And when you see people who are successful, congratulate them, support them, because if you're seeing their success, then you're on the same vibe and wavelength as them. And at some point, that success is going to touch you if you continue to give and support and be happy for that. We live in a time now where everyone's saying, well, I wish I was like them. How lucky they are. You know, and that's great. You know, if I had all the time in the world, I would do that too. Those are excuses. You don't have any idea what those people have been doing to get to where they are. But also realize that we live in a very kind of like instant gratification world where if you see something, automatically it triggers you to think that that person is living the most grandiose life ever. And what I'm leaning toward here, and I'm kind of digressing, but success is not just some big grand party. Success has a responsibility. When a person is a certain way, they have to be a certain way in order to have that kind of success. Donna, today, like it's today, you know, you've had a sinus infection for a little while, but yet today she showed up and she was able to do this interview and she's still recovering. And see, this is the thing that success does for most people. You know, of course, if she didn't have a voice at all, she shouldn't be on the podcast. But the fact that she's here today because she cares so much about her podcast, her guests and her listeners, that's what success is. It is what you do, is how you show up. So that's what success means to me. I don't care how much money you've got in the bank. I don't care how many materials you have. I don't care what your past experiences or your victories were. What I care about is what you're doing now. That to me is a success. There's a lot of things I could say that I did years ago. And I could be like, well, I did this, I did that, I did this. That's nice. Those are achievements. But my question is, what am I doing now? That to me is what success is. It's the activity of the now toward a vision that you have about something you want to experience in the later.
Right. And I could not have said that better, but I am going to add one little thing. And I tell people this all the time. If you can visualize what it is you want, then the path becomes very clear and lit up for
Absolutely.
you to follow. If you don't know where you're going, then the whole map is a twisted highway.
It's a twisted highway. It really is. You know, if you think about If you look at a captain on a ship,
Mhm.
they have their map of the next port of destination. Now, if a storm comes through, fog comes through the night, they don't just stop because they can't see. They keep going because it's already been programmed where they need to go. And that's kind of how life is. Your brain has to be programmed into a navigation system of where you're going, because there are going to be some days where it's going to get murky. People are going to get on your last nerve. you're gonna have you're gonna have people. You're like, where did this person come from in my life? Why are they in my stratosphere right now? I have no idea what this energy is around me. And but yet it happens because we're all human and we're on this planet. So we're gonna come across each other once in a while. But when it happens, you stay on course. You
Mhm.
don't just say, well, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna just argue with this person and be mean like them. You just say, you know what, that's their journey, that's their experience, whatever the story they got in their head, that's on them. It just so happens we're connecting briefly right now because we got to bypass each other. And that's how you see it when you program your mind that way.
Mhm.
And when there's things that don't happen for you in the right amount of time that you think they should happen, you
Mhm.
still stay focused on the course of actions.
Mhm.
Because if the captain just says, okay, I can't see anything, let's just stop the ship,
Mhm.
it doesn't resolve anything. You don't get anywhere. And
Right.
so we have to really look at programming our minds to say, my purpose is to get to this point. So what do I need to be purposeful about in doing that in my actions? And as you do more, you will see more. And
Mhm.
like Donna said, the vision is so important because when we're operating, people call it visionaries, but when you're writing, and Donna knows all so well about this because that's what she's an expert in this. And that's why I love Donna. And like, I want to learn from Donna with writing. I want to learn more. So when Donna's writing, she has a vision of something. It's coming out of her as a trust and faith that if I write, if I set these things up for myself, my outline, where I want to release it, what day I want to release this on, and how I want this to be, my audience, who am I speaking to, those things become more visual later on down the road because she's doing the actions toward it. And maybe you're not a writer. Maybe you're a person that you want to look at some other things. I don't know. But what I do know is that if you don't have a vision, then the reality becomes very murky to you.
Right.
And that reality is going to be something that you're going to have to face. And the challenges that come with it are going to be much harder because you don't have a vision to get beyond it.
Right. And I talk a lot about this in specific about writing and marketing and stuff like that. But here's the thing that I have learned. If you don't know where you're going or what you want, then the shiny objects are always going to distract you because you don't have an idea of what it is you're wanting to achieve. So how can you celebrate success if you don't know what success means to you?
Exactly. If you
So
don't know what it means to you.
exactly. And that's where you have to start. You have to decide, well, if I want this and this is my purpose, what is success? What is each achievement I need to attain? And those are success because you attain them. So yeah, it's we can set ourselves up to fail or we can set ourselves up to celebrate every day.
I love that. And that's important. We can really, the thing is that we can really self-sabotage to the point to where we don't really see our successes because we're comparing ourselves to
Mhm.
other people's big successes. And this is where a lot of people get lost. They get stuck. They
Mhm.
think that, well, my life is not so good, so I'm not going to even try anymore. I'm just going to just stay and just be normal and do it this way. And reality is that no, maybe you need to try something different. Maybe there's something else that you need to listen to and take a risk on something. I have fallen on my face so many times, Donna, to the point where now when I fall, I just say, okay, I know how to plant myself so I don't fall too hard. Because this is happening. It's happening now. And I learned how to respond to it. And the thing is that there is a saying that we jump but sometimes we learn on the way down, and I really believe that you do learn on the way down as you're jumping,
Mhm.
but more importantly you learn how, as you would say, I want to say it in your words here, you learn how to land
Mhm.
better. You learn how to land a certain way, and you get more efficient at it over time, and you're like, oh, okay, now I know how to maneuver and shift and do this way, that way I can have this result. And that's what success looks like to a lot of people. It's something that they have mechanically designed that works for them. And that's why it's important to figure out what success is to you. If success means having a lot of money, ask yourself a question. Well, what are you wanting to do with that money?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where people get lost. They say, well, I want this. Well, why do you want that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I want it, because I could do all. No, it's conditioning. You were taught that when you have all this, then this happens because of that. And that's not necessarily true. If you have all this, then what would you do with it? That becomes your purpose. And that's when people that end up in those positions, they end up doing more things because they have a purpose behind it versus those who get it and they just throw it all away. So once again, we're getting back to what is your purpose behind things?
Right. And yeah, I mean, it all kind of works itself together. It's, you have to, for me, I try to break it down to the simplest point. It, if I have a passion about something that gets me out of bed every morning, even on those mornings when I'm in so much pain that I just want to scream at the world, why, or, on days like, the last few weeks when, my throat was so sore, I could barely speak, or, or just on days when I'm overwhelmed, if I have something that still gets me going, then I know I'm on the right track. When I have a reason to not just sit there and binge watch television, then I know I'm on the right track. If
So true.
you are working every day, even if it's just one teeny tiny little toe step in the direction of what it is you want, then you've achieved success. And for me, that's all I need. I don't need the big grand, and I hear this a lot with the awards and successes. It's like, well, life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You
It's
can't
not.
expect to get everything today because you worked yesterday. That's
It's
just not the way it happens.
Timing is very different. I mean, a lot of people don't realize this, but
Mhm.
when you create an act,
Mhm.
there is a succession of things that are occurring in your favor, or maybe not in your favor, depending what your act is. That's why we have to be very clear and purposeful about what we're doing. Is your act out of kindness, out of integrity, out of this, or is it from scarcity, or is it from fear, or is it from anger? Because either way, it's going to spiral something back to you that's going to show you what that act was all about. We call it cause and effect life. But you want to be in the causing, you want to be the causing effect of your life. You don't want to just be like, oh, caused and effect, that now I'm over here getting this result that I don't want. You want to be intentively causing things a certain way because you are looking for this effect. And it reminds me, when I think about this, Donna, of Maya Angelou. And she said that success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. I'm trying to be sassy like her, but I can't really get it like her. She's probably young right now. But that's what she said. And she said that's what we have to do. We have to like ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think that's something we're missing these days, is the idea of, and people can say, well, I do like myself. Do you really?
Mhm.
Or do you chastise yourself a lot? Do you say negative things to yourself throughout the day in your thought process? Oh, I'm too silly, or I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, or I can't do this, or I don't have enough experience. I'm too late. I'm this age now. I can't start this. It's too late in my life. Or I did this before, it failed. This person I know failed it, so it's no way I can do it. There are so many things the mind will repeat to you that you've learned to believe that you have to unlearn. And that's part of your success, is unlearning those things that don't serve you and learning the things that do.
Right. And I'll go back to, my mother. Sometimes as I get older, I realize my mother was probably a very wise woman, because she always had all these weird sayings that I didn't really understand as a kid, but as I get older, I'm getting them. And one of her favorite things was, you never learn anything from being perfect.
Mm,
And she goes, and if you did, you wouldn't acknowledge it. And so the same thing applies to when you are comparing yourself to other people's success. You wouldn't appreciate it if it was just handed to you as much as if you worked hard to get it.
mm-hmm. It's
You know,
true.
and
It's true.
you talk about the cause and effect here. It's like, if things just fall in your lap, we discount them. We never appreciate the things that we find ordinary in ourselves that other people find extraordinary. You go on and talk about me being know about all these things about writing. I mean, that just comes naturally to me like breathing. So it's like I tend to discount that about myself. I've learned over the years to not be so discounting, but again, it's something that comes easily to me. So I don't always appreciate it as much as I should. And I think this is also part of the thing where we're getting off track. It's thing, people just, they see something that they are lacking in another person and they're begrudging their success because they actually didn't even work towards that.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like,
Exactly.
well, I'm a nice person. I should get, all the kudos and the smiley faces. It's like, well, didn't you get some last week? Well, yeah, but they got more than me. And it's like, so.
If I had sort of people listening today,
Mm-hmm.
I've been on social media for quite some time, and I don't care much about the likes and applauses. It helps when you see it. You're like, okay, cool, that's awesome. Glad we have the support. But I'm more after the impact, because there's so many people who are watching who don't respond, who don't send those things out. So if you're someone and you're trying to compare yourself and saying, well, I don't have this amount of likes, I don't have this amount of people, and guess what? You do have people watching you, and they are learning from you. So don't stop because you don't see that. Keep going because you're creating an impact. There's over 7 billion people on this planet, Donna, and they're still counting. And trust me, out of 7 billion people, you're going to impact some percentages of that. That's why I believe that there's no one out here that can dominate. I cannot stand the word dominate. When someone says, I want to dominate, and I'm just like, no, I said, you're coming from a competitive playing field, and that doesn't work in the creative state. I said, if you want to compete, that's on you. But if you want to create, that's a whole different level of living that creates so many more wonders for you.
Yes, and it does an amazing thing. So I want to keep going here. So you're challenging your listeners to be change makers, and we sort of talked about that a little bit. So I want to know what you think that means, or what you mean by that statement, and where is the best place to start to become a change maker?
With yourself.
Okay.
In the words of the great Russian novelist, one of my favorite novelists of all time, Leo Tolstoy, he said that everyone thinks about changing the world, but no one thinks about changing themselves. And to be a change maker, we look at the world and we look at things and we say, oh, that needs to change. The planet needs to change. People need to change. We start pointing. What we don't realize is when we point, there are 4 fingers pointing right back at us. Or is it 3 fingers? It's 3 fingers pointing right back at us. And that means we have just as much responsibility for the change. And no, you cannot change things outside of you directly all the time, but you can change things within yourself. You can change your perception. We just talked about this, how you see things, how you see yourself within the world. You can change how you see a problem. Most of us, when we have a problem, we think automatically doomsday. You walk in, and all of a sudden there's something that doesn't go right. And you start thinking about the options of what happens if this goes wrong next? What happens if this goes wrong next? Versus saying, what can I do instinctively right now in this moment in time to respond to the situation? That's what it means to be a change maker. When we think of change makers, a lot of people think of people out here doing grandiose things with technology, with businesses and global impact. That's great. But change makers come in all shapes, sizes, careers, backgrounds, cultures. And to be a change maker, you don't have to do the grandiose things. To be a change maker, it starts with you. And the planet is going to change regardless. Change is inevitable. Planet doesn't care if you change or not, but it will appreciate if you start making changes within yourself and to, as I say, co-collaborate with it. Be a person that you add value to where you are, who you are, and who you're impacting on a daily basis. And that's what I truly believe, that we can be our own change makers, but we first have to start with ourselves, because the inner journey is the hardest journey of all time. No one wants to go inward. People can say, well, I know myself. Do you really know yourself? Do you truthfully know yourself? Because if you do know yourself, you can be completely honest with people, no matter where you are at any point in time. And a lot of us, 90% of us, are not truthfully honest with ourselves because we fear not being accepted. And to make changes in our life, we have to start making changes with how we accept ourselves first. Self-acceptance is where everything starts. Then you can start creating boundaries. Then you can start saying, I need my writing time. No, thank you. I need my reading time. No, thank you. I'm focusing on this project. I've got a deadline to make. I will meet up with you next time, next month. And when people try to shame you for being self-focused, you can say, no, I'm here to do this. I will communicate with you when I have a chance to. What do you need from me right now that's so important? And you start having these conversations, and it may seem for some of you listening like, oh, that guy's a jerk, or he's too headstrong. No, it's a loving way of communicating with people, and they respect you much more. And what you will find is that you become a change maker in your relationships. You start seeing people who are not supportive, people who are taking your time, they'll just start kind of filtering off a little bit. And then you'll get those people coming into your life who get it. They support, they help, they ignite. And then you start saying, wow, I am a change maker. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean by being a change maker, not going out here and creating major projects, the change maker in your life. That's where it starts.
Right. And I'm gonna draw some wisdom from my father, who always used to tell us, you can either be part of the problem or part of the solution.
Absolutely.
Pick a side.
Pick a side.
That's it.
Some people try to sit in the middle. They're like, I'm just gonna stay in the middle. Nope.
Nope. You gotta pick a side.
One side or the other side.
That's it. So, all right. So you often are asking your guests very difficult questions about overwhelm, anxiety, and burnout. And I want to know why you think those conversations are critical to keep us moving forward.
Let's talk about anxiety right now. So we live in a society where we want everything fast, and everyone's thinking about the future. Everyone's wanting to resolve problems that are not supposed to be resolved just right now. So that creates a level of anxiety of not being able to do something right away. We're too far ahead in the future. We're being taught, think about your future, think about this, but you can't live a future that's not there yet. Your present will start to determine your future. So with a lot of people that are trying to be more successful, so to speak, and trying to accomplish more in life, they get a sense of overwhelm because they're trying to do everything at once. They're trying to be everywhere at once. And with a younger generation, it's actually an acronym. It's called it's FOMO. It's called fear of missing out. And I truly believe that adults, we are right in that spectrum too. So it's like this fear of trying to be everywhere, know everything. Oh, calm it down a bit, take it down a notch. You're not going to know everything. You can't be everywhere physically. Physically, by nature's law, you cannot be everywhere. And what happens is your thoughts go everywhere. That's what drives you out of control. You're trying to think over here, think over there. So that causes the overwhelm. So we have to learn how to dial it back, know that if something doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. And know that there's another day to do it. And that it's not going to be the end of time for you. All right. And if someone's trying to make it like it's the end of time for you, then you need to ask yourself a question. Why are you associated with this person? And maybe you need to have a talk at some point. Let's talk about, what was the other one? The other one was
overwhelm, anxiety, and burnout.
Okay. So overwhelm and anxiety are they kind of go hand in hand for me. So anxiety is, like I said before, is thinking too far ahead. You're trying to do everything. Overwhelm is taking too many things on your plate. And as entrepreneurs, business owners, writers, whatever you are in the line of work you are, there's a sense of trying to be the all-star. You're trying to do everything to yourself, and you have to have a team. You have to have people that you can help delegate work to, people that are better at doing things than you are. For the longest time, I was overwhelmed with my speaking and even podcasting because I thought that I could do it all by myself. I thought I could be on social media all by myself. And that was so not true. I started to feel very overwhelmed. I started to feel like I wasn't doing enough and that I wasn't living up to what I was capable of. And that was because I was putting too many things on my plate. So we have to have those conversations of, if you're feeling tired, you're getting headaches, you're not sleeping well at night, you have a loss of appetite, you're getting irritated with people around you, you're less patient, you're quick to get angry about something. These are signs by the body that you are off-centered, that you need to figure out something and to get yourself back to not being overwhelmed. And one of those action steps is figuring out, what are you worrying about so much? What is the main thing that keeps coming across your mind throughout the day? And what can you do to get some help to resolve it? And so we talked about overwhelm, anxiety, and what was the last one?
Burnout.
Burnout. Burnout comes from the sense of overwhelm. So when we're burning out, it means we're trying to burn the candle at both ends of the flame, and we're trying to do everything. And burnout comes from not taking care of yourself. It comes from not loving yourself, not taking out some me time. And for those of us who say, well, I've got this, I've got kids, I've got this, you don't understand. I mean, I don't understand your life directly because I'm not in it. But what I do understand, there's 24 hours in a day. And if you cannot dissect those 24 hours into at least an hour or two of your time, you have to seriously think about how you feel about yourself. Because this idea of altruism and self-sacrifice that people have been taught to go through in order to make other people happy, it needs to change. Because when you self-sacrifice and you don't take care of those parts of you, there's a part of you that begins to wither away. And then you become resentful. And then you start living vicariously through other people. And then you wonder what happened to your life 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And we don't want to be that person. So when it comes to burnout, you have to slow it down. Pick a day out of the week where you say, it's some me time. For instance, for me, my brain thinks a lot because I'm a very analytical person. And then you can see how I'm talking, moving my hands. That's how I communicate. I'm very creative. I'm very wordy. However, on Sundays, I call it my spiritual washing days, where I wash myself of all the heady stuff that I read during the week. And I say, today, I'm going to read a fiction book, something that takes me out of the realm of self-improvement and the philosophy and the so serious, Adrian. I'm going to read some poetry. I'm going to go out on a walk. I'm going to go to the ocean. I'm going to just sit and have maybe a latte somewhere at a cafe and take out time for myself. I'm going to spend some time with family and friends, but I'm going to make sure that I'm there presently as just the person that I am. I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about what needs to be done next week. I give myself that grace and peace on Sundays, and that's my way of stifling the overwhelm. And so those are some little hints that you can begin to do. And you may not have 2 hours. You may not have a day to do that, but choose 30 minutes to an hour because you have to create that space. Like I said, change maker. You have to change how you feel about yourself. If you cannot find 30 minutes to an hour to do that, then you don't feel very highly about yourself. And I'm sure you probably would argue with me with that. But truthfully, if you want to make the time, you will make the time, just like with anything else we do. If we really want something, we make it happen. And you have to make this happen for yourself to take care of you.
Right. That's absolutely true. And you know what most people forget is all three of these things, overwhelm, anxiety, and burnout, steal joy. So even if you're successful, even if you're doing well, it steals that joy away from it.
You become a robot.
It's like the big, it's like the big scary monster just came out of the closet and sucked up all the joy.
You become a robot. You become emotionless, and that's what happens with a lot of people. If I've met people before. I've had people that I've been around, very highly successful, but behind closed doors, they're not happy. There's a hole in the emotional part of their lives, and that they wish they could get back. And the reason I'm sharing this with everyone is because you have to be careful about these pillars of your life, the mental, the emotional, the social, and the physical aspects, because all these are who you are as a person, as a human in the becoming form, because you're becoming something throughout all these interactions. And if you can't find ways to balance out these perspectives of your life, they're not going to be completely balanced, but you got to start touching on one. Mentally, what did I do today for myself? What was something that kept going on in my mind? Physically, what did I do for myself today? Did I walk? Did I stretch? Did I rest? Did I do some breathing exercises at my desk? Emotionally, who pissed me off today and why? What did I get upset about? How can I change that next time? What made me happy today? And socially, who did I hang out with today? Who did I spend the most time with today? Was it myself or was it with someone else? And what was the spark of that conversation? What did I get out of that? We have to start taking an inventory of that. And the great Jim Rohn, he said this: you must stand guard at the door of your mind. Because what happens is we don't pay attention to what we're doing purposefully throughout our days just run by.
Mhm.
And then we wonder why we're not getting to where we are, why we're overwhelmed, why we have anxiety, why we have some resentment and fear, because we're not paying attention to those things that
Mhm.
are impacting our behaviors and impacting our energy levels.
Right. I mean, it's the old analogy. It's like you can't pour from an empty cup, but you also can't pour from a cup filled with garbage.
Mhm.
If
Exactly.
you're not intentionally filling yourself up with the things that make you joyful, that make you feel successful and present and all of those things, then, again, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
All right. So I want to know what is next for Adrian. You're continuing with your Champion Up network and now your Purposeful Life podcast. So what's coming up next? I want to know.
Yeah. So the big focus right now is on Your Purposeful Life. That's a part of me now that is expanding into a big community. So the podcast is there itself, but we are building a community that where people can come and get support they need, takeaways from the podcast. We'll start working on building a private Facebook group, and I'll do some Q&A sessions at the end of the month. I just want to have resources for you as you begin to shape your purpose and redefine things in your life. The Champion Up is what people have known me for when I first started. And the thing about Champion Up is that it hasn't gone away. It's just found a new home. Champion Up now is going to be more toward students in schools, because I want to show them how to be champions in their lives and how to champion for their mental health. Because right now that is a big issue for them coming out of COVID, the 2 years of being isolated, now going into this world of uncertainty with how society is going. They're in a very challenging time. And it's really hard to beat them right now. So I realized that I needed to champion for their mental health. And I thought, what better way to bring Champion Up into the schools and to let it rest there as its own home? Whereas Purposeful Life, it's about overall worldly support. It's about emotional support. It's about the support of the human being navigating through this human journey that I also call the human mess. So what's going on next, what's coming up is that we have the big release of the new season coming out in the first week of November of the Your Purposeful Life podcast. And it has been a while and people have been waiting for it. I've been waiting for the right moment to bring it out there. And it will be happening that first week of November. So go to the yourpurposeful.life website and scroll down at the bottom. You can sign in for the newsletter that will be announcing the things that are coming up, takeaways from the shows, what I'm going to be doing with the podcast overall, new guests coming on, and also some Q&As and other exciting projects I'm not going to share just yet. They'll be happening in our community.
There's that hook that we were talking about earlier. All right. And of course, we'll have all the links for you guys in the show notes. So if someone wants to be a guest on your show, Your Purposeful Life, how would they connect with you?
Just connect with me through the website.
Okay.
I'm keeping everything streamlined because I really want it to be a place where people can go and they can get all their needs met in one spot. So there is going to be a personal email that I will set up that you can send it to my team. And then we will figure out a way if it's a good fit. If it's not a good fit, then we'll let you know. And once again, I want everyone that's trying to be a guest on podcast to ask this question to yourself. This is kind of a podcast teaching moment for the guest is, what is your purpose on being on the podcast? Mm-hmm. Does your energy match what the host is revealing through their podcast? Mm-hmm. What are you doing that the host would like to merge with? For instance, if you're coming on Donna's podcast, are you an author and writer? Mm-hmm. If you're not, either one, maybe that podcast is not going to be for you. Maybe she's not going to want to have you on because what are you going to talk about, right? Unless she knows you and unless something else is sparking her curiosity. Mm-hmm. But most likely for me on the podcast with Your Purposeful Life, I want you to think about what purpose do you have? What purpose are you consciously working on right now in your business, your community, in your personal life? What is something that is driving you and that you're actually physically doing right now? And if you feel like you have that energy, then yeah, go ahead and apply to be on the show. We'll take a look at some of your background and see what's going on. And then we will reach out to you to see if it's a good fit or not. And that's how you can be a part of the podcast as a guest.
Right. And that's awesome advice. I've talked to people and it's like, I don't exclude people who are not authors and writers, but most of the time they do have some touchstone with authors and writers, such as you. I mean, you're talking a lot about what you're talking about on your show can be very easily translated to authors and writers. And that's why I want to bring you on so that they do know about these other moments where they can go to people and get useful information that's going to help them on their writing journey. So where can we find out more about your podcast, the blog, the Facebook group, and where can we find you on social media?
Very simple. yourpurposeful.life. Just go to that website, yourpurposeful.life. You can go there and follow me on social, follow the podcast and me on social media. All the links are there. You can also go there to sign up for the community as we start putting things out about what's coming up, about the podcast, the shows. Everything is all in one spot for you to make it easy for you to navigate and for you to be a part of such a wonderful community that is growing.
All right. Awesome. We always love that. And so do you have anything else, any kind of, you talked about going and having them sign up for your newsletter so they can be up to date on everything that's happening with that. So we'll make sure that we include that as a link for you. But do you have any upcoming events or anything else that you want to add before we go pull the ripcord and pull this show down?
That will be it. Just the announcement of the brand new season starting the first week of November of Your Purposeful Life, and to go to our YouTube channel and hit that subscription bell with the purpose, because I'll be having all the videos there and we'll be releasing episodes every week. And that is what's coming up big for me right now, is the focus of bringing this community together and really making some big things happen.
All right. Well, we are so very excited for you. I can't wait for this new season to come out. I can't wait to see who you have on there and learn.
Lots of interesting people.
I got to learn something new every day. So that's always a good spot for me to go to learn something. So I appreciate that. So again, just a reminder to the audience members, we will have all of the links to follow Adrian, to get to his podcast, to get to his website, and all of the information that you have heard about in the show. We'll have that for you in the show notes, along with a transcript of today's show. I am not going to do the tip of the week today because I think we gave you so many enjoyable tips throughout the show. So pick one, enjoy it. And until next time, I hope that all of your writing dreams land well. Again, thank you, Adrian, for being here today. We wish you all the best of luck with this relaunched Your Purposeful Life. And
thank you.
Come back again. We'll talk more.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Dada.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.